AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today is time for our monthly hangout with Chef AJ and friends. And guys, I'm going to have to put it back in the other view. I know that my group here loves it better when we are in the mode, but then on Instagram, you guys can't see anything. So here we are. We have started doing this actually once a month in December. It was just kind of a fluke because these are my friends and they moderate my groups, my social media pages, when we're live, because I can't be in 10 places at once. So if you've watched before, we did 2 great shows. Some of the people are actually calling us the vegan view. We did one on weight loss and food addiction and one on cleaning up the environment. And today we're just coincidentally having the reboot program start next week, but we're going to be talking about really one of the hallmarks of the reboot program, which is the support from the group. And we're just going to have a little conversation here, whether or not people feel that support is even necessary for people that are starting or continuing or want to have a weight loss success journey, or maybe with managing food addiction. So please welcome back to the show, Jessie, Susanna, and Zena in alphabetical order. How you ladies doing?
Great, thank you.
Great.
Haven't seen you guys since New Year's Eve. Did you guys know that today is called, what did I call today? It's quitting day. It's National Quitting Day. Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that till I heard you say it.
Mentioned it. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? And that's why we start Reboot after National Quitting Day. So after you quit, you can come back and commit. Don't quit, just commit. So I'm curious, and we can hear from one of you guys at a time. You've all had journeys in the weight loss space. Maybe, I don't know the degree of problems you guys have had with food addictions, but have you had success, and meaning in general or specifically in your immediate household? And if so, was that important to your success or not? Or could you have just done it alone in any environment? Why don't we start with you, Jessie, because I'm just seeing you guys from left to right.
So have we needed support for our continued success? Is that
or do you think it's a crucial thing in general? Do you think that most people can just get this information, read a book like McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss or Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss or The Pleasure Trap, implement it, and they're done? Or do some people need more of a structured kind of thing like a reboot program, or just to have, some kind of a coach or just some kind of support system?
Yeah, I definitely think that for most of us, there is a time where we really need to go back to basics. And there is a time where we need to start over, to disengage from what we're doing, particularly if it hasn't given us the success we want, and really go back to basics. And I think that's one of the most important things that the reboot offers, because it really is start from the beginning. So it works for people who are really new to the program, and it also works for people who need to renew or do a reset on where they are and what they're going to do, reviewing their behavior, and really kind of tearing things down and starting over. So I think that the reboot is particularly important for that. And I do think that support is necessary. I think different people can get that in a lot of different ways. But the reboot offers a pretty unique combination of different types of support for both the person who's new to the program and the person who's been doing it for, a significant amount of time.
Well, there's nothing really new, well, people keep saying, is there a new program? Is there new information?
Right.
No, because the information doesn't change. The science doesn't change. The diet doesn't change. I mean, the Q&As are different. The group is different. But, I always heard that people that are successful not because they have some new information that others don't have, but because they learn the fundamentals and they execute them better than anybody else. And that's, I think about the Karate Kid, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's one of my favorite movies. Yeah.
Well, like Jessie was saying, I actually have used reboot at both ends of things. I I had stumbled on your Truth About Weight Loss Summit, and since then till now, I've lost almost 75 pounds and really just have my life back. It's incredible. It's been a couple of years, but at the very beginning, the very next thing after that summit was a reboot. And so I thought, oh, I wonder what that is, and took it, and of course was way undereducated. I had so much to learn at that time. Zena and Pam were amazing coaches, and I asked so many questions in the forum and on the live shows, and the lives were and are still my very favorite part. I know at my very first reboot, AJ, you took my question and brought me on camera and did some laser coaching with me, and I was just completely blown away, and it was just such a good start for me. But I'm also going into my 5th reboot now, which I actually can't believe that much time has passed, and I still learn things. I still sit and watch the videos, and each day you get like a small video. It's not too overwhelming, so it's maybe 7 to 10 minutes depending on the day. And I'll sit and watch the video, and if there's a recipe that I haven't tried yet, those sometimes come through there. And then the forum is just such a great place for support and to ask your questions and camaraderie, and you had asked about support, and I have made some beautiful friendships through your courses. I've met somebody that lives near me, and we've spent time together now, and even went to Rancho together. We were roommates, and I'm sure some people in the chat, we chat on text outside of here, and kind of encourage and support each other through our lives. So that all started from courses like Reboot.
Well, speaking of Rancho, we do have an opportunity for you guys to join me and Susanna and anyone else that's interested, not until August, but we'll be doing that show live from Rancho on February 5th. But we're here kind of just to answer your questions in general. All 4 of us have been in this space for some time, and we have improved our health dramatically, lost weight, have managed to, I don't want to ever say overcome food addiction for those that believe in food addiction, but I think we're managing them pretty well. And we can answer any kind of questions about that topic, because that's what we do all day, basically. At least that's what Zena does all day.
A lot of it. Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah, I wanted to comment on your question also, because I kind of came at it before, before Reboot started. And actually, when I first started, the very first way I got into it was by reading Dr. McDougall's Maximum Weight Loss Plan book. And I read it because you had asked, can you read a book and do it? Now, I have met somebody one time when I was at the McDougall program who said it was at one of the weekends, and she lived like literally 3 miles down the road from where they used to hold the McDougall program. And she had gone to the library. She didn't even buy the book. She went to the library and checked out Dr. McDougall's books, read them, and followed it. And she lost something like 85 or 90 pounds. And, that's what she did. But I read the book, and I met her years later, but I read the book and I couldn't do it on my own. I didn't know. I mean, I understood it. It's not difficult to understand it, but because my life was so completely 180 degree turned around from that, it was just, I didn't know how to really start. So the support that I got was by actually attending the program, the 10-day program. And it was great support while you're there, but then you leave, and then you're back home. And if you didn't have a spouse or, family member or friend or somebody who went through it with you, you're back on your own again. And this was back in 2003 when I did the very first one. And we didn't have groups like this. We didn't even have necessarily forums, or if there were, I wasn't involved with them. I didn't know about them. And so I would keep going back to the programs. I would do whatever programs I could. When they had a 5-day program, I would take it. When they had another 10-day program, I would take usually a 10-day program almost every year. I knew the information, like you said, AJ, it doesn't change. The science is the science and the information is the information. It doesn't change. But, you get a little off track or whatever, and you need that recommitment to it. So that's what I was doing and then I met you in late 2011. I started taking classes with you live in 2012, and I took one after the other that for that 6 months. I don't know, I probably took 10 classes with you, because we're doing all these different ones, and I just kept taking them. And again, I didn't really need the information. I already had I'd been doing it by that point for 8 or 9 years. and I knew that, I knew it. I'd read all the books. I'd taken all the class, I knew everything. Well, not everything, but I knew, I knew what I was doing. So it wasn't that I needed the knowledge, but the support was very helpful to feel like I was part of a community. But then you moved and, and then I got busy and you moved, then later you moved. And so we weren't having the live ones, but so that's why I love having the reboot now, because this gives people the chance to experience that community, and those who need to learn the information get a chance to learn it, and those who know it get a chance to share it with other people. And but it's just that kind of reconnection and that recommitment that happens, that Jesse was talking about, just kind of recommitting, like, just, I know it, I know what I'm doing, but I got to recommit, or I don't know what I'm doing and I need to learn, so whatever it is. So I just think it's a really great opportunity for anybody who feels like, maybe they're going it alone and they want a little bit of support, because there's always just really lovely people in there, and it's just so nice to be a part of it.
What you mentioned was interesting about the person that read the book, got the information and did it. And if you're one of those people, please do it. But I think about other areas of my life where I study. And for example, stand-up comedy. Now, I'm not a great stand-up comedian. I'm not terrible, but I'm not, Chris Rock either. But I keep going back to classes because I think a lot of people think you should only do something once or never and just be great at it. And repetition is the mother of skill. And there's this doctor that's in my stand-up comedy class. If you follow me on my comedy journey, you saw her at the last showcase, that she came in the first time, she hit a home run. She's just one of those people like your friends. But I find that so many people want to do it. They take one class and then, it wasn't like they didn't have the ultimate success and then they quit. And weight loss especially is not one and done. I always say to people, you can't dabble in weight loss. I mean, you can, but if you want long-term success, I mean, if you just have the goal to lose a certain amount of weight for a high school reunion or your daughter's wedding, you'll probably do it any way you can, and a healthful way or not. But it's kind of like a lifelong problem, or at least it needs awareness and management. And that's why, I mean, believe me, if I didn't have like another job, and I have lots of little jobs because I do a lot of different things, it'd be ideal if we had like a 12-month reboot. And one day maybe we'll create that, because most of us are taking the Food Revolution coaching course, and maybe we can create a 6-month or a 1-year program for people that need it. But in the meantime, the beginning of the year seems to be when people are the most highly motivated. I mean, not that people don't need or want to lose weight at other times, but this is when a lot of times it's foremost on their mind. And I think being in a group can be wonderful. And like you said, the Q&A that Susanna mentioned, to me, like that, as the teacher, one of the teachers in the program, that's my favorite part. Like, I'm so lucky I get to be the one. I'm sitting here for 3 hours. I mean, asking Dr. Lyle and Dr. Goldhammer questions. I mean, to me, that's just a treat, a joy.
It is. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. If you guys have questions, put them in the chat and we will get to them. 4 question marks first. And Jeannie, your question is about mustard. So I can't put mustard links in shows that aren't about mustard, but I did put it in the chat just now. And I also did it yesterday for I know what I want to talk about with you guys. So hopefully everybody here, meaning my friends, saw the earlier show, but if not, it's completely okay. Because what we did is we brought on a lovely lady named Becky, who wrote a question in for what we call laser coaching, which is something we do in Mastery. Well, actually, not just in Mastery, we do it in Reboot when a lot of times people have a very succinct question, like, will this diet help my thyroid? In which case we don't have to bring them on to talk to Dr. Goldhammer. You can usually, just answer that. But when either more information is needed or we need to dig a little bit deeper, we do what's called laser coaching. If you want to see an example of that, you can watch the earlier show, and we used to do that in Vegas too. I loved that. Were you at the Vegas Ultimate Weight Loss when we did that, me and JP on stage?
Yes.
It was, yeah, it's nice. The people, they're like, we're not mean or anything like that, I would hope. I mean, especially on a conference, this being recorded. So anyway, Becky, it was really helpful to meet her and to dig deeper. But here's the question I'm going to ask you guys, if put you at 3 in the hot seat, because you're all moderators and coaches, how you would have answered this, or how you would have worked with somebody, because there could be somebody coming to the next program that has the same or similar situation. But she was saying that, Chef AJ and friends, I want to transition. And if you're here in the chat, let me know, Becky. I want to transition from a McDougall style diet to a SOFAs free diet. In case you guys don't know what SOFAs are, they're things you sit on, but they're also an acronym for sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, and salt. And the reason it was created is because we always had said, well, not we, but Dr. Goldhammer, SOS free, sugar, oil, salt free. And that's what I started teaching many years ago, like in 2008. But then people would come to the Ultimate Weight Loss Program and they'd be eating a lot of flour products and bread and drinking alcohol. And I said that to Dr. Goldhammer. He goes, well, they should know it's part of the sugar, part of refined carbohydrates. I said, well, they don't know. So I added the F and the A for sofas. And I've often said, if you want to lose weight and get healthy, stay off the sofas, literally and figuratively. She says, can you please provide your advice how to eliminate sugar and flour? I've eaten the McDougall way for 17 years and feel ready to eliminate sugar and flour. Thank you. So it was really helpful to get to know her and her goals and actually see her because she's, you know, her weight is great, her health is great. So you might get a question like that on the forum, and the forum is a through Kajabi, so it's like a Facebook group but off Facebook. So how are you going to handle a question like that?
Well, can I go ahead and start?
Yeah, everybody can take a turn, you know.
Okay. So I don't want to reiterate everything that you and JP had already mentioned on this question. I think if people want to hear what you guys really hit all the high points already. A lot of the things that you would have said, I know that myself and Pam and Susanna, Jesse, I think many of us who you know, would be on the forum would be mentioning those things, and so I don't want to reiterate those. There were a couple of things that Becky said that kind of stood out to me. First of all, she had mentioned the 85, she'd been off sugar for 85 days, which is a wonderful achievement. I congratulate her on that. And she mentioned that she's already not, you know, craving the sweets as much. So that's wonderful. I was thinking when she said the 85 days, she's so close to hitting that 120 days. Sometimes it takes 4 months to really get that calm, stable brain. And that's what it took it took me exactly 120, almost exactly 120 days. And I was thinking that I would love to encourage her to really push for that, because after a solid of 4 months being 100% compliant with absolutely no sofas, that calm, stable brain that I woke up with one day, I mean, it was amazing. It still gives me like shivers when I think about it, even all these years later. And it's something that you can't really understand until you've gone through it and you're on the other side of it, looking back at it. I think people who've experienced that, they know what I mean. The second thing that she mentioned that kind of stuck with me was that she mentioned stress, and she said she would do fine when life is moving along well, but she would struggle when, she said, when life gets lifey, which I really loved when she said that. I thought that was so cute, because it's true, and life does always get lifey. But many of us really will do fine when life is just moving along well. But then we struggle when stress appears, and stress always appears unexpectedly, right? Like we're not, I always would think, well, if I knew it was coming, maybe I could have avoided it, but that's not always possible. So a couple of things that I've learned about stress, especially for myself, that have helped me with this issue is that first, our brain is the biggest user of glucose, which is our main fuel. That's number one. And when we get into a stressful situation, we're like doing these mental gymnastics, that we're trying to get through the problem or whatever the stress is. And we start to empty our fuel reserves as we're burning through that glucose. And maybe if it's a longer term stress, maybe even our glycogen stores. And the other thing that it does, again, especially for me, is that it pulls us out of our normal life, right? So if we're like under a deadline at work that the boss is screaming for, or the kids or the dog get sick, or something's, and we're having to deal with that, we're stressed out, we're rapidly depleting our energy, and we may be too busy to eat when we normally would. So then we'll default to the easiest source of sugar. And when I'm saying sugar, I mean sugar as well as sugar and flour. And it's usually the junky stuff, it's going to be like, she mentioned candy specifically, candy, cookies, whatever. If we're doing better, we might grab something healthier like fruit. But often what I think our brain is really calling for is the starch, right? Because that's going to give us the complex carbohydrates and a really good source of glucose. So I always recommend having something like potatoes or sweet potatoes on hand, cooked potatoes, cooked sweet potatoes, especially like sweet potatoes, because they can really satisfy that sweet craving in a healthy way. So, I would recommend somebody maybe cook up a batch to keep in the fridge, but not just that, always make sure that you're carrying some with you, right? Because if it's just in the fridge and you're out running about, it's not doing you any good whatsoever. And we all, many people know this. We call this our PIMP, which stands for potato in my purse. And I always say, don't leave home without your PIMP, So take your PIMP with you to work while you're running errands, when you're grocery shopping or you're going to the movies, just take it everywhere. And you don't have to eat it, but it's just good to have on hand. Like if you also doing the green powder or the essential oils that JP often recommends, that's great. If that works for you in the moment, perfect. You don't have to eat that sweet potato or whatever you've got on you. But it's kind of like having a first aid kit or having a spare tire. You don't always need it, but when you need it, it's good to have it on hand, right? And it doesn't do you any good if you don't have it. Yeah. So and if you get home and you still have it, just put it back in the fridge for later. This kind of led me, when I was thinking about it, it just really boils down to being prepared ahead of time before the stressful situations occur. If we wait until the situation happens, we often stumble. And if we stumble, that's fine, because we can always pick ourselves back up and start again. But if we don't learn from it and prepare for the next time, it can just keep happening again and again and again. So I would just recommend that Becky or anybody who deals with stressful situations from time, actually anybody, because I think we all deal with stressful situations, kind of think about what can you do to be prepared for it, whether it's batch cooking a lot of food and having stuff in the freezer so that when you don't have time to cook, you can pull something out and eat something healthy. That's great. But I really do think the sweet potato thing can help, along with everything that you and JP talked about. So those were the kind of the two things I wanted to touch on.
I agree, because you can't skimp on starch. And, this brings after the other two ladies answer what they feel about how they would advise somebody that wants this worthy goal when, they're already pretty close to doing 100%.
She was doing great.
Yeah, because the thing is people have, I think, unrealistic expectations of how much weight can be lost in 30 days in a healthful manner.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's so true.
Skimping on starch and maximizing vegetables might get you there faster, but it's not going to sustain you in the long run. And I feel like if we have enough starch, we don't have those intense cravings for sweet.
Yeah, that including what you had said earlier, which was getting the greens in, especially in the morning. I think those two things really can just work wonders. I mean, they really, really can. So yeah, definitely. The other thing that I wanted, can I just say one other thing? It's not on this topic, but you just kind of mentioned it. I don't want to forget. It is that thing where you were saying that people, their expectations are too high. And I think that happens a lot with the program. They think it's 30 days and I'm going to go and I'm going to lose 30 pounds or whatever. And, don't put that kind of pressure on yourself, because you want this to be long-term. You don't want to lose the weight, like AJ was saying, just for a wedding or a reunion or something and just gain it right back. That's not fun. So anyways, I just want to
let you know, Mona said that that's so true, Zena, the advice you gave her, and it definitely worked. And Struthi wants to know, how long can you keep a sweet potato out of the fridge?
I've done it. Okay. Everybody's going to be different about this. If you're okay, so I put it in a little Ziploc baggie and I put it in and I've had it for 8 hours and I've eaten it and I'm still here. But some people get kind of freaked out by that. They have like little bags, insulated bags that have, that you can put that in and it can last you all day. So if you want an insulated bag, just have an insulated bag that you have one of those like little freezer things, packs, I don't know, ice packs. You stick it in there, stick the potatoes in there. And this, especially if you get something like a murasaki or a Japanese sweet potato, those things are good cold. They're good right out of the fridge. They're good room temperature, whatever. But I've taken them with me and I've come home and I've just thrown them back in the fridge and taken them out the next day, run around for, 4 or 5 hours, brought it home, I didn't need it, put it back. But when I needed it, it was really, really good to have it, because those stressful, sometimes even just running out, like there was a time when I thought I was going to run out to return a cable box, and the place was 15 minutes away. So I thought I'd be back within 40 minutes. I was gone for over like almost 10 hours. And it was like the day that Murphy's Law day, like everything that went wrong and kept going wrong. And I hadn't eaten because I thought I was just going to, put it there, drop it off and come back. 9 hours later, I was like literally like tearing my hair out. It's like that hangry thing. So again, it's like that spare tire of your first aid kit. Have it, if you have it with you, then you don't have to worry about it.
It's like that saying, poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my
For
part.
me,
And I had a
right.
similar story once that because I have what's, if for a man, they might not want to have a purse per se, but they have these things called purse coolers that look exactly like stylish purses, but they're coolers. And I remember the day that I turned out of my driveway at like 10 in the morning to really like just do an errand at the grocery store. And I didn't get home till 10 at night because I happened to be in a car accident. And so, preparation really saves the day. And there's an old saying, preparation trumps motivation. And if all you have is healthy food, I think it's going to be a lot more easy. So
My husband takes potatoes in a Ziploc bag in his briefcase. He's got that kind of job. And so he uses a small Ziploc bag and we use those little potatoes and cook them up, and they're great. He uses those all the time.
as my mother said, whether it's an umbrella or a coat or a potato, it's better to have it and not to need it than need it and not to have it, because not everybody has a Wendy's in their neighborhood.
That's true.
Mhm. I wanted to loop back on what Zena was saying about Becky, with her great 85 days of success. The two things that Zena mentioned, one is the calm, stable brain. So Zena and AJ and Jesse have been at this a lot longer than me. I'm kind of the new kid on the block, but I have experienced the calm, stable brain that Zena has talked about, and I've also lost it. And it's through courses like Reboot that are reinforcing all those principles that have brought me back. And it only takes about a week of white knuckling it to get over that difficult part where everything tastes good again and all that. And then I loved Becky's statement about life gets lifey. I hope we can, because I just think that's because it does all the time. I've got 8 kids and a couple of husbands, and no, I don't have a couple of husbands. My kids have husbands, and so, yeah, that really sounded strange. My world is getting bigger. My big family already with 8 kids is getting bigger. It's growing. And so my life does get lifey. And what I'm learning, and I'm still learning, is that if I dive into crappity crap food, I feel worse, and I can't help my people cope with their difficulties as well as if I could right now. So right now I'm very, very compliant, very, very stable, and I just love my food. I eat the similar foods every day. I just vary the vegetables and vary the fruit and vary the starch. But if I am faced, and I have had many challenges through this 3-year path that I'm on, every time when I go off, I feel so much worse, and it helps me cope more poorly if I'm not eating our food. So I'm still learning, and I still stumble sometimes, but I just wanted to encourage her that she's got that 85 days under her belt. She's so close to sort of the gold.
Well, the thing is, hey, let's just see, playing devil's advocate for a minute. Is it even a worthy goal? I mean, not saying it isn't for her, but for everybody, because, even though Dr. Furman had said the money's in the last 10%, we have that very real ego trap involved. And if people come into this program or any program seeking perfection, it's kind of like the people that come into my comedy class that take it one time for 7 weeks and expect to have an HBO special. Life, unfortunately, doesn't work like that for most people, because I always say, do the least restrictive program you can do that'll get you the results you seek. And everybody has different results for different reasons. And so for her, it could be a very valid reason why she wants to do this. But I think that's why we have to work with people sometimes individually, because for some people, complete abstinence all the time could be a complete disaster. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think that's why we're always telling people, you have to know yourself, know thyself. We say that a lot. It's interesting because Mona, Mona has heard me many times talk about the sweet potato trick, right? Or the potato trick, or whatever you want to call it, the PIP, right? And then she did try it, and then she told me one time that it worked for her, and it was working for her. And I was so glad that it's still working for her, because she just mentioned it now. But a lot of times, we hear things and we think, oh, that's not going to work for me. I don't know if I'm going to do it, or what, or we don't do it. But if you try it and then you get there, you'll get there. But the thing with with, but sometimes if you push yourself too hard, and it's interesting because like listening to, it was Becky, right? Listening to her talk, and it's like she didn't really have a weight problem. She didn't really have health issues. But AJ, do you remember we had a gal in the live UWL classes that when you used to have them in your apartment up in when you were in LA? I'm not going to say her name, but she was very cute, very thin, petite. She had long blonde hair. She had a beautiful voice. I think
I know who you mean.
you know who I
Yes.
mean. And she
And
didn't have
everybody would look at her like, what's wrong with you?
why are you here? And she even told me that one time. She said, yeah, I think, a lot of people just question me. Like, and she said, even people have said that to her, like, why are you concerned with this? But it played on her brain. That's what she told me. I remember we were walking one time around the apartment building and she was explaining it to me. She goes, it's always pounding on my brain. So even though it didn't manifest in a way where it was showing up as a weight issue or any, she didn't have any health problems either. But if it's pounding on somebody's brain and it's making, she was uncomfortable with it. So for some people, that might be enough. And for somebody else, it might not. So you really do have to know yourself. And you're right. We have to kind of work with people where they're at and also where, for where they're coming from. The first thing I had wanted to know from, when you guys were talking to Becky earlier was what her, why she wanted to do that, and then when she went in further and explained that she hadn't had, it's just something that kind of keeps pounding on her brain a little bit. And she wants that kind of calm, stable brain. And it was something that I didn't even know that I was looking for. And when I got it, it just blew me away because I had not heard that term. This was before I met you. And I had not heard that term. And it was like, all of a sudden one day, it was like gone. This banging on my brain was gone. But like Susanna said, I've had that and I've had it for years at a time and then lost it because I fell off track. But when you've had it, you want to get back, it's like, oh, you want to get back to that magical land, So you're like, oh, I really want to get back there. And she's 100% right. It's like, you have to white knuckle it for a while to get back there. But yeah, so I think it depends on the person. It's going to be very individual. Somebody might not really care about stumbling and getting back, off and on, back off track, back on. That might not bother some people. And some people, it might drive them a little bonkers. So it just really depends.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate what you're saying. Jesse, do you have any thoughts on Becky's situation?
Very short, and this is nothing new, but what Becky said was sugar and flour were her main issues. And that to me signified dessert. So the three things that I would have said to Becky were Chef AJ's vegetables for breakfast. Don't start your day with oatmeal. Don't start your day with, get the vegetables in. The second thing I would have said was to find the starch that really satisfied. And what she was saying was she was following the starch solution, but she wanted to be SOS free. And I'm wondering if she, because of the sugar and flour problem, if she tended not to think of starches in a positive way. So the second thing I would have said to her was find a whole plant food starch that satisfies. And of course, that gets also, it could be the potato in my pocket, but it could be other things too. Find what it is for you and rely on that and trust that that will be the healthy thing to do. And the third thing I would say is read The Pleasure Trap and then go out and find the videos on the ego trap, because there is no book about the ego trap at this point. But I think reading The Pleasure Trap, particularly for someone who's talking about sugar and flour, is really important. So those would have been the three things I would have said to her.
You're right. There's no book yet about the ego trap. Dr. Lyle is writing it down right now. But there is an episode of the Beat Your Genes podcast, and I'm trying to remember the exact episodes.
161.
You are like, that's why we call you Xenopedia. That will really.
I only know that because of you, AJ, because I've written it down for so many people for so many times. So it's part one. It's a 2-part episode, but it's part one.
One of the things, and that's why it's so much more helpful when you can be in a program where you can not just ask questions, but have follow-ups, which we can't always do on these lives, especially when the person isn't visible like you guys are in the chat. But in the in the reboot, if you want to be visible, we can all see each other, is then we learned a little bit more about her environment. And it turned out her husband had lots of snacks and stuff. And so, we suggested the locked food safe is an option, or, there's different ways we can navigate that. But yeah, so that's pretty cool, Let's see. So somebody's asking, what are your go-to meals other than salad, broccoli, and potatoes? So that's my lunch basically, but not salad so much for lunch. I do that. God, ever since I got back from True North, that's all I do is the Bravo soup. I love that.
I made it. I made it for the first time this week. It's wonderful.
It's so good and it's so soothing to the gut. It's just 2 ingredients and it's so warm and it's so cold up here. But my other go-to meals are really whatever's in the freezer, because I am the biggest fan of batch cooking. So I always have tostada rice in my freezer. These are recipes that are free on YouTube or in my books, The World's Best Tostadas. And so I can just pull that out. We usually have that twice a week, usually Tuesday, one of them, because we like to say Tostada Tuesday. I always have sweet potato burgers in my freezer. I can pull those out. And I always have a soup, stew, or chili. So it's just my go-to meals are the 3 things that are in my freezer. And then I don't ever have to cook another meal. And I mean, I do cook them occasionally, like, a from scratch meal, but those 3 are just always there ready to go. So I've got 3 dinners a week, and if I can repeat them, I don't mind repetitive eating. I actually prefer it. I've got sensitive gut and I don't like a lot of variety or a lot of seasoning, but for those that do, you can just follow Tammy Kramer on Nutmeg Notebook and batch cook the heck out of everything,
Yep.
I've always been, I learned from Dr. Lyle that I'm a novelty seeker. So boy, for the first probably 2 years of eating this way, I was chasing recipes. And in fact, if you watch my earlier videos, I'm like, here's this recipe, because that's how it felt. I felt successful that way. But for sure, the vegetables for breakfast became a habit very early on. I was very resistant to that and thought it would make me nauseous. And one thing that I kind of did in my head was think about it as an eggless omelet. So, you could have bits of zucchini and bits of onion and bits of bell pepper. And so actually I did that at Rancho. They had an omelet bar there, and I just asked for all those things sizzled in water in a little frying pan, and I got vegetables for breakfast there. But so I've been doing that right from the beginning. And so I don't eat till around 11 or 12 every day. And that was sort of another thing, I've heard Dr. Goldhammer say to fast 16 hours. So that's sort of something that I couldn't do it at first. I had to eat breakfast earlier because that's what I was used to. But over time, I stretched it out. And so after that, I have my second breakfast, which is always oat groats and berries. And I have a lot of it. That recently I've been working on eliminating snacking. Usually around 3 or so, I tend to get hungry, but I thought I was hungry. And I think it's just been a habit. It's just been a snacking habit. And so I'm really working hard in this new year. AJ, you had on Dr. Scharfenberg, 100-year-old Dr. Scharfenberg said to try and eliminate snacking. So I've really been committed to that. And then dinner, about 3 or 4 nights a week, I'll probably just put like in a big bowl, like a big IKEA salad bowl, just for me. I'll put like a bed of like different lettuces, spring mix, arugula, that kind of thing. And like maybe half a can of salt-free beans if I've got canned, or I've got some ready, and then a starch. So maybe some diced up potato or sweet potato or some rice. And then I'll just pour some vinegar over top of that. Or sometimes I have a dressing made, we like AJ's barefoot. What is that? Barefoot dressing.
Barefoot dressing.
I like that one. I really like that one. It makes a huge batch, so you've got it in your fridge and you can use as much as you want. That's the amazing thing about this way of eating, is I can eat as much as I want. That for me was so freeing with learning this way of eating. Is like, what do you mean I can have as much as I want? Well, as long as you eat these foods, you can eat as much as you want. If you're the kind of person that starts, well, I'll also have some toast, or I'll also have some, those are much higher in caloric density. And that's one of the big things that I learned in Reboot, is actually how to eat and what to eat. And within the parameters of the program, you can eat ad libitum. And that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing that separates us. If you guys are looking for a strict weighing and measuring program, this is the exact opposite because
Yeah.
we promote eating large volumes of food. And Suzanne, I think one of the reasons I've never been a snacker is because I eat so darn much at my meals. I don't have room. I barely have room for the 2 meals I eat because they're huge. And I love stuffing my face with food, None of
Me
this
too.
lady like small portions.
I also, you mentioned weighing and measuring. I don't have time to weigh or measure my food. I'm too busy. I don't want to track it. I don't want to write it down. And that was one of the things that tripped me up. I'm a like multiple offender of failing at Weight Watchers. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't write it all down. I couldn't track it. I couldn't weigh it and just kept failing. And that's where this program comes in. And I think too, for me, that having Dr. Lyle kind of hit the underpinning of the pleasure trap helped me understand why am I like this? Why do I want to eat garbage all the time? What is it and what's happening in my brain? And once I understood that, the success followed. And honestly, even if that's 30 days, if you're not probably going to see, most people aren't going to see a huge weight loss, but you're learning. This is the starter. The 30 days is where you start, right?
It's kind of like the intro to the rest of your life.
Yeah,
Thank you.
kind of
And
it.
it's saying, can you bring sweet potatoes through TSA? Unless you blended them up in a smoothie, you can bring any solid food. Hummus is a gray area. It will depend on the TSA agent. So JP likes to dehydrate his. But yeah, I mean, I remember I haven't traveled for a while. I'm going to be doing a big trip, I think, this summer to promote my new book. And I remember with my cooler, it sometimes triggers the thing because of the ice chip, even if the ice chip's frozen for some reason. And so the TSA agent said, "Oh, so you're bringing your food with you for a week?" I go, "No, sir, this is just for the next 24 hours. Hilarious. It was hilarious. Okay, so yeah, Debbie has a question, but where is it? Okay, she says, I'm very interested to hear what everyone eats at breakfast. I struggle with vegetables for breakfast. So I don't eat breakfast. Breakfast means in the traditional sense, a lot of people think of breakfast as bacon and eggs, boxed cereal, something you do when you wake up. I break fast when I'm hungry. I don't get hungry until noon, usually, sometimes as late as 1 o'clock. And I have found that the more resistant people are to this idea of vegetable for breakfast, the more sugar addicted and food addicted they are. Because as JP explained in the previous broadcast, it's because you can't tolerate any kind of bitterness or alkalinity in your food because you're so acidic from from all the junk. So I don't know if that's true for you, Debbie. Maybe you can type in the chat if it is. So if you can't eat vegetables for breakfast, I always say if you're not hungry enough to eat vegetables, you're not hungry. And if you don't believe me, go to True North and fast. First thing they give you, the first solid food you'll get, well, actually, I think it might be watermelon chunks, but the first non-watermelon chunk solid food they'll give you is steamed zucchini. And when people get that zucchini after even a short fast, they think they're eating a hot fudge sundae. So it's not that vegetables don't taste good, it's that you can't perceive the good taste in whole natural food that's not slathered with sugar, fat, and salt, because you're not eating it. If you were raised eating it, you would actually love it, like Dr. Goldhammer's son, Gar Goldhammer, who says his favorite food is Brussels sprouts because he was told when he was a little boy, if he was a good boy, he'd get Brussels sprouts. So yeah, you guys want to talk about what you eat for breakfast? I'll look for some more questions.
Yeah, my husband and I we do 2 meals a day, and our break fast is whenever we get hungry, which is usually sometime after AJ's 11 a.m. live. And what I've been doing lately is getting a broccoli slaw from Trader Joe's. I start by sauteing onions, I add in mushrooms, I add in corn, I add in the broccoli slaw, red bell peppers, and a bag of kale. And we have that over oat groats. And that is our first meal of the day. And our second meal of the day could be chopped raw veggies with some vinegar, or it could be, lately we've been doing a roasted head of cauliflower, and I had roasted up a big casserole dish full of beets and whatever else we have around. It could be potatoes, it could be a bean burger, so that's it. Those are our 2 meals a day. And potatoes. We've always got potatoes. My husband's a big Hannah Yam fan. I'm a big Yukon Gold fan. And that's it. I use a lot of spices and herbs, but we don't vary our foods very much. We're not we're not variety seekers, but we are flavor seekers. So I really do use herbs and spices.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
That's
absolutely.
it.
And there's so many ways to get variety without necessarily having to reinvent the wheel. So if people have this idea of batch cooking, thinking of food as bowls, having a grain cooked, whatever that grain is that you like, quinoa, wild rice, regular rice, oat groats, and then you take some of that in your bowl and you have some greens that maybe you can either quickly cook or eat raw, or maybe you've roasted some vegetables and sauces. I think the key is having a delicious sauce, because I think unless you like to have your food plain, and I can eat food plain if I have to. I can eat a salad without dressing, especially if there's like an apple cut up in it or some pineapple. But to have a delicious dressing, and you certainly don't have to buy California balsamic, but that is just an example. I believe there's 34 flavors now. So you could have a different flavor every day of the week if that's something that you wanted to do.
Right.
You could, we talked about earlier with JP how there's 18,000 kinds of legumes. You could have a different bean the rest of every day, the rest of your life if you wanted. And so many, I heard there was 400 different kinds of sweet potatoes. So you don't have to have the exact same thing every day for lunch like me. I do it because I like it. When I don't get it, like when I'm traveling, like tomorrow, then I'm kind of missing it. So yeah. And Zena, what is your daily eating look like?
Oh, so I do start with vegetables for breakfast. I know there was a question about what do people eat for breakfast, and this person said that they're having a hard time with vegetables, but I do start with vegetables for breakfast, and it's usually, it varies. Sometimes it's the roasted glazed Brussels sprouts, which I love. Sometimes it's a salad. It depends on, the time of year. Sometimes it's broccoli, steamed broccoli, or I love kale. Kale's the kale. Like I'll go for like maybe 4 or 5 days having the same thing over and over, like every morning. And then when I run out of it, I'm like, oh, what else have I got in the like freezer and the fridge that I can use? And then I'll use that up, and then I'll go to the next thing. So it'll be some kind of either roasted, steamed, or raw vegetables, and it might be salad. Lately, I've been doing soup in the morning. So I had made a big I was going to make the garlic lovers soup one day, but I didn't have all the ingredients for it. So I used what I had, and then I added other things that, to make up for the stuff that I didn't have. And I made a big pot of that. And I was really enjoying that as my vegetables for breakfast because it was nice and warm. And I don't have a set time for breakfast. I don't necessarily eat late or early. It just depends on, like, usually I'm probably eating sometime between 10:30 and maybe 12, between 10 and 12. But there are some days where I'm kind of hungry earlier. I might be eating as early as 8 or 8:30, but that's not, usually it's maybe around 10:30 or 11 that I'm eating my first meal. So I don't know if you would call that breakfast or, but it's whatever, it's my first meal. And then after that, I always have some starch. I always have to have my starch afterwards. And I will have most days it's going to be like oatmeal, and I'll do like usually rolled oats and blueberries. Sometimes if I've cooked oat groats, I'll have the oat groats, which I really enjoy. I'll have that with some blueberries or something. So that'll be my second meal. I'd say that's probably 9 out of 10 times. Occasionally, I might be some kind of potatoes or something, and it's usually I love Yukons or the Japanese. I'm very plain. I'm a very plain eater, which is very surprising for me because I used to be somebody who just wanted nothing but sugar, salt, and fat on everything. So my taste buds have really adjusted over the years. And then usually at lunchtime, if I didn't have a salad for my first meal, my second meal, I'll have a big salad, and I will put either cut up sweet potatoes in that, or I'll put a grain in there. Like I'll have some cooked rice that I'll put in there, and I'll put like a bean in there. Either I like garbanzo or black beans usually. So I'll put beans in there. I'll put either a grain or some potatoes. I'll put all the veggies. I'll add a little bit of fruit. So, I mean, it's a huge salad. It's like probably 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of salad. And it takes me a long time to eat it. And that's fine because I'm retired now. I mean, I'm not working in an office. I'm kind of semi-retired. So I don't care how long it takes me to eat, but I used to eat it at work. I used to take it with me to work, and I just sit at my desk and I just eat it throughout the day, and it was fine. So I'll do a salad for, my second meal. But it'll have also, like I said, it'll have everything in it. It'll have the starches, it'll have some beans, it'll have some fruit and all the veggies in it. And then for dinner, it's like I might have I might have like a chili, or I might have like a grain bowl, like kind of what AJ was describing. I'll take like some rice and some, I'll use frozen vegetables a lot. I know some people don't like them, but I love the ease of them because I just don't like to chop things up. I would open up a bag and steam them or roast them or do something with them and then just put them on top of my grain. And, I'll either do a dressing or I will do the California balsamic vinegars on top of that. Something easy. If I cook, I'll make like one of AJ's chili recipes, or I'll do one of her soups, and I'll keep that in the fridge and some of it in the freezer, and then I'll use that, and I'll add things. If I want to make a more of a meal, I'll just add. I'll either take the chili, put it on top of a baked potato, or I'll take a soup, put that on top of a baked potato, or add some rice to it, or whatever, and maybe even vegetable chunks, and make it like more of a meal. So I'll eat 2 or 3 times a day usually.
And by the way, if this is the first time you seeing the 4 of us, we all have stories of weight loss. Myself, 80 pounds from my highest, 55 in the last 10 years. Zena, over 100 pounds. Susanna, almost 75. Jesse, over 50. So, we're kind of like been in this space for a while. But I think about her question, and Debbie, if you're still there, she hates vegetables for breakfast. Which vegetable is she eating, and how is it prepared? And what else is she eating, and what is in her house? Because if your kids are eating Cocoa Puffs and your husband's eating donuts and a Cinnabon and, brings back a caramel macchiato from Starbucks, good luck enjoying vegetables for breakfast, number one, if you're in a very unclean environment. But also, now I can eat plain steamed vegetables and enjoy them. But when I was starting out, 13 years ago with this concept, I did not eat plain steamed kale. I took the time to make recipes like the oven roasted ratatouille, which is amazing. Even regular people like it. The balsamic Dijon glazed Brussels sprouts, which I still enjoy from time to time. But then, I just didn't need all the bells and whistles, and I learned to enjoy plain food. But at the beginning, my food had to be, it was always plentiful because we eat in accordance with the principles of calorie density, but it always had to be extremely delicious, just like Susanna was saying at the beginning. But you get to a certain point I believe we all have a certain level of mastery in this group that, we don't require that, but there's nothing wrong if you're somebody that likes the variety and wants to do it. But I always tell people that if you hate vegetables, then eat the one you hate the least. Most people can down a cucumber or a cherry tomato. It doesn't have to be cooked vegetables for breakfast. It can be a salad. It can be a smoothie, but not a smoothie made with fruit. We call them salad smoothies, and believe it or not, they're good. They don't look good, but like you can take a half a pound each of spinach, red bell pepper, tomato, and zucchini, put it in a blender in a cup like this, so you're not looking at it because it's brown. Put dressing in if you want. It's actually quite tasty, a blended salad. They do those sometimes at True North, like if people have dentition problems, but they need to get more of the vegetable material. And so, yeah, a hot soup, cold soup, like a gazpacho, the possibilities are endless. And, there's so, like, for example, rutabagas, turnips, you could make them into fries and air fry them. I mean, there's so many ways now to enjoy vegetables. It doesn't have to be, canned green or gray peas. Peas, by the way, are legumes and not vegetables. So
for me, I started with zucchini just because it was like the least offensive vegetable to me. And I just lightly steamed it because I don't like it mushy. And what I know it's not a weighing and measuring program, but I was so far gone from not knowing what a pound of vegetables even looks like that I did get out a food scale. And I was really surprised that one good size zucchini raw is about a pound. So I was like, okay, so I could probably eat that. The other thing that I thought of while you guys were talking was that when you stop eating right after dinner and don't snack in the evening, then the breakfast becomes, whenever you have your breakfast, becomes a little bit more appealing. If you haven't had like popcorn or Cheetos at 9 o'clock at night while you're watching a movie, right? Like you're actually hungry. And AJ, something that you said to me in the beginning in the course was, just like toddlers don't like to brush their teeth, but we do it anyway because it's good for them. That's sort of the same. Like I had to kind of trick myself at the beginning to get used to it. Now I love it. And I really can't believe I'm on the other side of that because I was really resistant.
And I was too. I mean, and Susanna kind of mentioned that she thought she was going to be nauseous if she had to eat vegetables for breakfast, and she kind of pushed through. I resisted it for 2 freaking years, for crying out loud. I was probably one of the most resistant people, and I'm just like, no, I'm just going to keep eating my oatmeal and my oatmeal and fruit. That's what I'm going to eat. I do want to say that if it's somebody who's coming from eating like a Egg McMuffin every morning, and you can only do oatmeal and fruit as your, that's an okay place to start. But I do have to say that if you can push through, like Susanna did, if you can push through and do the vegetables for breakfast, you'll get so much further faster, I think, because it really, like everybody says, once you get used to it and then you stop, you don't have it, you miss it. And then you're like, oh, I really want my veggies now, and so it's like my mind goes first to vegetables now. It didn't in the beginning. Okay. It didn't, but, and I've shared this before, but I was so resistant to it, but my first vegetables for breakfast was kind of an accident, because I had made the, glazed, roasted Brussels sprouts that AJ, mentioned. And I had made them for dinner, and I ate like half the portion. And then I had made like a double batch or something. And so, because I wanted to have them for the next day as well, I was going to take them to lunch. So the next morning when I was going to go pack my lunch, I opened the fridge and I wanted to taste them, because I remembered, oh, they were really good last night. Do they still taste so good? Well, I popped one in my mouth and it tasted even better, because when they got cold and they sat in the fridge, they tasted like candy. They tasted so freaking good. So I ended up eating the whole second pound of the Brussels sprouts just standing in my fridge. And I was like, oh, and I finished them. Well, I guess that's my first vegetables for breakfast. And it was a happy accident. So I would encourage you to, like AJ was saying, find a vegetable that you really like, or one that you dislike the least. Even if it's like cherry tomatoes,
Oh, those are great. And roasting anything brings out the
Roast-
sweetness,
Yeah.
or grilling, you can grill with that oil.
Great.
So, but the thing is, guys, it's vegetables. It's not fruit. Fruit is healthy, but if you're food addicted, sugar addicted, fruit should be saved for after a meal or at the end of the day as a sweet treat. Because Instagram Beach Girl is saying, is a spinach smoothie with blueberries, raspberries, ginger, unsweetened soy milk with 1 serving of dates and unsweetened protein powder okay? Okay for what? It's not part of the program that we're teaching to help people lose weight and recover from food addiction, because or manage food addiction. Liquid calories are not as favorable for weight loss. And, dates are wonderful, but they're very high calorically dense. They're very sweet. We don't want you to start your day with sweet food. If you're a food addict and a sugar addict, we want you to start your day with in a savory way with that. And so if you can make the smoothie without the date and without the protein powder and without the blueberries and raspberries, then it's fine. But most people won't do a savory smoothie. So how many pounds of vegetables do you recommend per day and per meal? Well, the more the better, to a degree that you're not only eating vegetables and making sure that you're getting most of your calories from whole wet starches. But I think people should aim for 2 pounds, if at all possible, 1 pound raw, 1 pound cooked. When I was 55 pounds heavier, I was eating 3 to 4 pounds a day. But, vegetables are like 67 calories per pound to 125 calories per pound. It's pretty hard to overeat them, but you have to make room for the starch, because without the starch, you're going to be hungry. And then you're going to be looking, as Zena said, for the sugar and the flour and all those kind of stuff. So I got an email from somebody today. He wants to be on the show to show these recipes he makes that are, he said, I just did a reset and I lost 7 pounds in 3 days. And he had copied Dr. Goldhammer, and I go, that's impossible. You can't lose 7 pounds of fat in 3 days. And Dr. Goldhammer agreed. I can even find the email, what he said. He said you would have had to have a deficit of something like 26,000 calories, which is impossible. And here, I should say what he said, because the thing is people don't understand that this is not a get thin quick program. It's a get healthy for the rest of your life program, and the weight loss will follow. But if you're losing that much weight, I mean, there are people that can drop a lot of weight at the beginning. I mean, I don't know if you remember the program, Zena, with the gentleman that fell asleep. I'm not going to say name, but he lost 27 pounds, but that's because, getting off the salt, it wasn't 27 pounds of fat for sure, although he did lose some fat. let me find what Dr. Goldhammer said about the person that said, well, I lost 7 pounds. Well, first of all, the biggest problem he has is he's weighing himself, because you can't get any information in 3 days anyway that's accurate from a scale. But Dr. Goldhammer said you would not be able to burn 7 pounds of fat, 24,500 calories in 7 days. Most of that weight would be water, glycogen, fiber, and a small amount of protein, with the remainder fat and visceral fat. So it's not that people can't drop pounds, but you're not going to drop 7 pounds of fat in 3 days. And so that's not something that I was interested in having on my show, because then people start to think, well, gosh, if I just do this reset for 3 days, I'll do it like every month. No, that's not how it works. It's, if Dr. Furman has said this, if you can't do it for the rest of your life, it is of little use.
Yeah.
So,
No, I'm sorry. The other thing I wanted to say to that, and here's the problem. So you lose whatever, the 7 pounds in 3 days or whatever it was. And then the following week, you have a rebound, because you're going to get some water, some glycogen, some fiber, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're up 5 pounds. And then you're like, well, what happened? What's wrong? Even if you stayed perfectly on plan, you'll have that spike back up, because fat doesn't come and go very easily. Fat is really hard to lose. That's our body fighting for our survival, to hold on to every bit of fat. But water, water goes, you can drink a ton of water and get on the scale and, oh my gosh, I just gained 10 pounds. No, you didn't. You just drank 10 pounds worth of water. And then when you eliminate that, you'll go down 10 pounds. But people will see that, they'll be eating healthy and they'll lose a lot, of water weight, basically because what Dr. Goldhammer said, it's like this, getting rid of the salt. And then when it comes back, they're like, this doesn't work, right? They're not, like, kind of what we've already kind of said, they're not staying in it for the long haul. They get frustrated and they give up, and that doesn't serve them well. So that's kind of the double whammy. And then when you're weighing yourself all the time and you're seeing this fluctuation, and it just makes you a little crazy, I think. It just makes you, like, you doubt yourself, that you're all of a sudden, like, your happiness or your depression is based on this number that's on the scale that's not really telling you much of anything. I mean, it really isn't. So yeah, that's tricky. It's a tricky thing, but that's
it's like Slim Fast. Give us a week, we'll take off the weight. Anytime, especially if you're somebody that was having salt and you stop having salt, you're going to see a drop just from that. So ladies, here's a question. What advice might you guys have if you did take the first bite of something bad and want to stop, if any? Well, I'm not taking the first bite, because I learned a long time ago what the one relapse I had early on, that it's a disaster. But I suppose if hypothetically I did that, well, actually, when I did my pilot for because I have the new cookbook coming out, all desserts. And when I did the television show pilot, I did have to take a bite of all this stuff that I hadn't eaten. I immediately threw it away. And I don't mean in the trash, because you can still eat from the trash. I mean down the garbage disposal or outside trash with the kitty litter type of thing. That's what I would do. I don't know if this has happened to you guys, but how do you stop yourself in the middle of a snack accident?
That's so hard. Oh my gosh, I've only been successful at that maybe twice, where I actually took a bite of something and I'm like, why did I do that? And I spit it out. That usually doesn't happen. Usually I'm eating it. And then what you said earlier, AJ, one bite is never, what was the saying? It's like,
one bite is too many.
Too many,
1,000 bites is never enough.
Exactly. And that's usually where I end up, falling down right there. One of the things, if you have eaten something that you really shouldn't have, the best thing to do then is to eat something healthy immediately. And usually that's going to be something like greens, or having sipping some green powder water that, JP talked about earlier, that'll help alkalize your mouth again. And, that'll help calm that back down. So yeah, but it's better to prevent it if you can.
Yeah, that's been my experience, is that I've had one too many snack accidents, and it's actually quite shocking to me now, after 3 years, to feel that out of control with food when I don't have that feeling anymore. And also that once you have just the one bite, it's just calling you. It won't turn off. And then you feel terrible about yourself. And Dr. Law teaches about the internal audience. You're feeling lousy. You feel like a failure and everything else. And so for me, that's where that abstinence is bliss saying has been so beneficial, because, you know, getting through that moment of having that one bite, is easier than the 2 days or whatever of mental anguish that I now go through for having eaten that whatever it was, right?
Yeah, you know that saying, a moment on the lips, forever on the hips? I think it should be for us food addicts or food recovery, a moment on the lips, forever on the brain.
True.
Yeah. Okay. What about smart scales that give you more information? I don't believe they're that smart or they're that useful. The only way to really measure is with either a DEXA scan or BIA, bioimpedance analysis. Those are really expensive, but we don't recommend even weighing yourself, believe it or not, weighing yourself or your food. And I know that's counterintuitive to the upbringing most people have with weighing and measuring programs and Weight Watchers and all that kind of stuff. I saw, what do you recommend for DHA, EPA, or omegas? Well, first of all, the first thing I recommend is get it tested, because why supplement something you may not need? It's very easy to get a fatty acid profile. Any doctor can order it, and you can even walk into Quest or LabCorp and self-pay and get that. And I don't think that if you didn't take those supplements for 30 days, you would become deficient unless you were already deficient. But a tablespoon of flax or chia on your vegetables or salad, or oatmeal if you eat oatmeal, that's what I would probably recommend. I don't do any of that. I've never supplemented with that, and I get my levels tested every year. Do you guys worry about your omega-3 fatty acids?
No, not at all.
I
And
had oh, sorry, go ahead.
I love purslane. It's hard to get. We've tried growing our own, but I'm not worried about it. You know, for thousands of years, people have lived without without these supplements. And we know that people lived well without these supplements in many different environments around this globe. So yeah, I would have to know that there was some specific problem that I was dealing with before I would be concerned.
Thank you. Yeah, we don't worry. You know, as they mentioned in the pleasure trap in the chapter, looking for health in all the wrong places, 99% of problems are caused by excesses, not deficiencies. And, you know,
Right.
if you have any fat on your body, you're not going to become fatty acid deficient in a period of 30 days of the program. We can pretty much guarantee that. So you know, we've been going a while. This is my third show today, and I still have one more. So I don't know if I want to stay on the usual 2 hours, as much as I love you guys. So we'll hang out a little bit. If you have questions, just put them in the chat, and I will look for them. But I hope you guys will consider joining us. We'll be there. There'll be a lot of great people you've seen this week if you watch Chef AJ Live regularly, coming back, like Donna and Janet and maybe you, and maybe Becky will join. Oh, I was going to see if there was another question that we answered earlier that would be really great for us all to answer as well. Yeah. So yeah, I love this question. I think I forgot to ask it to JP, but this would be a perfect one for Dr. Lyle. Is this program focused on getting everything perfect for 30 days, or is it more of an educational program about making long-lasting changes? You want to take that?
The latter. It's not about perfection. I would just say that it's about making progress, really. And if, you know, there's some people who really want to try to be perfect. And if you're one of those people, that's okay, but just don't get yourself in that trap that if you mess up something that, you know, oh, I'm a failure, I can't do this or whatever. It's really, if you go into it like that, you just want to learn as much as you can and do the best that you can. That's all we ask of anybody. And one thing I wanted to say is that in the beginning of the program, this happens every single time, every single, I mean, I think I've been the moderator for it since the beginning of this virtual reboot. And every single time we have people coming in like day one, it's like, they want all the information like day one, you know, like they want like all the 30 days worth of information. They're asking all these questions and they're just so worried about getting everything right. And I feel bad for them because, but if you think about it, the 30 days worth of information is really years worth of information that AJ and the other doctors and the doctors and JP, AJ and JP and the doctors have gleaned over many years, and it's crammed into 30 days. So to come on day one and think, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on, it would be like taking a college class that's, however many months long it is, and expecting to know all the answers on day one. So it's not, I just don't want people to stress themselves out like that. Just really relax as much as you can, and just know that you will get it. And if you're worried about it, not understanding everything, just remember that the forum is only for 30 days, where we're moderating, and the community forum. But the modules, you have that for a minimum of 3 years. So a lot of people, what they do is after day 30 is over, they go back and start with day 1 again, and they work their way through it again. So you can do that as many times to learn it. You don't have to worry about getting everything right off the bat and being perfect. I don't feel like I'm perfect. I don't think Susanna and Jesse, I don't think even AJ thinks she's perfect, although she's probably the close, she's probably 99.9999.
Oh no, I've been getting into the flour and salt for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, we've been doing this for a long time, so I don't think it's about perfection. I do think it's about making some progress and just being a little further than with your understanding and your knowledge than when you first started. So.
Yeah, I want to just read a nice comment, because Anne says she loves Zena, Jesse, and Susanna. Thank you so much for tuning in. But I've got to, we can answer that question, but I've got to mention this. So Patricia says, I don't understand how you're saying no fruit for breakfast, only for dessert, yet selling a book called Sweet Indulgence. Well, that's a fair question, but there's a few things. I am not a one-dimensional person. I'm not Bruce Wayne or Adam West, who only got to do Batman, and then as talented of an actor as he was, that's all people saw him in. So first of all, that's number one. Number two, the book's not even out until August 27th. So you got a long time to be practicing eating your greens before that. Second of all, I state very clearly in the book that if you are a food addict, this is not the book for you. So just because I wear one hat in one area doesn't mean this is all I do. I have not been overweight for 13 years now. I can eat these desserts now. Do I? Not very often, but I know how to make them. And we learned early on is that if there are no compliant treats, most people, even though many people can go without sugar and flour if they're in some type of recovery program, most people will not completely go without having something sweet the rest of their life, whether that's in the form of fruit or a compliant dessert, which this book is. That's why Dr. Goldhammer was able to endorse it. And so you have to know yourself. We said that early on. Most people aren't willing to dessert, and not everybody is a food addict. So if this is you, then don't buy this book, which you can buy now on pre-order, but I'm not recommending you get it if it's going to be a problem for you. It's a wonderful cookbook for people that are looking just to make vegan desserts and not have any kind of processed sugar except for fruit. So that's the story for that. You can talk about that, Susanna, because you have a family of 8 people, and she's not somebody that was willing to not ever give her family treats, and she was able to coexist with them. So maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. I am so happy to have an arsenal of naturally sweetened desserts to be able to serve to my family. And that's not to say that I don't have things in my home. I don't live in a clean environment, as we call it. And they eat things that I won't anymore. But for sure, it's quite thrilling to see them dive into like a chocolate pudding or something that I know is really clean. It's really such a good feeling. I wanted to loop back on your earlier question, AJ, that because I'm, 3 or so years into this, I'm a little closer to what it was like to begin this way of eating. And I felt those very same things that you're talking about, Zena, like that panicky feeling on day one, like, oh my gosh, I don't understand it. And one thing after a couple of days that I did is I Post-it note on my fridge, and I just wrote vegetables, fruit, grains, beans. I had 4 words on that Post-it note, and those were the things I could eat, because I would go to the fridge and there wouldn't be anything that I didn't think I had anything to eat. And over the years, you hear people say, like in my world, I've heard people say, oh, but it's so extreme. And one thing I learned in the program from Dr. Goldhammer is that this is actually our ancestral diet. What is extreme is the way our world is set up now. That's not normal. The way that AJ is proposing that we eat is our typical diet throughout history. So that's how I get around that.
Yeah, one of the viewers says, tell the person you were a pastry chef. Yes, I was a restaurant pastry chef for many years. Not a great job for a food addict. One of the Instagram viewers is asking, should we eliminate protein powders? So if you're doing the program, that's something that's really great for you to ask Dr. Goldhammer when he comes on for his 3 hours, or JP. But I mean, if you're not taking them now, certainly don't start. I don't recommend them. None of the doctors that I work with recommend them. I mean, there might be a case made for somebody that, I don't know, has some kind of wasting disease, but you get enough protein just from eating enough calories from plants. And we are not really for eating processed food at all. And protein powder is a very highly processed fractionated food. And so we don't recommend it. And how are you going to take it when we're not recommending liquid calories or smoothies? So I wouldn't recommend it for the 30 days of the program, but I'd also recommend you ask the doctors there. Tell Susanna that she looks radiant today. Well, what about the other three of us? Are we chopped cake? Dessert is not a necessity. Is it a habit and part and parcel of a meal at the end of the dinner in the Western culture? And that's a very interesting point because, you know, there's nothing wrong with fruit and there's nothing wrong with oatmeal fruit. And that's why if you can just do the regular starch solution, do it. But we are using vegetables therapeutically for managing cravings, fighting food addictions, and for their thylakoids, which block fat absorption and turn off the hunger switch and stop cravings for sugar. In other countries, because I've taught in other countries, Japan and Mexico specifically, and Canada, other countries, the desserts are not as sickly sweet in this country. I mean, in Japan, the desserts were, well, first of all, they just were not, even in France, they're not as sickly sweet as they are in the United States, even the French pastries. So that's another point to be made, that we put more sugar, fat, and salt in food than I think anybody else. Is there going to be a live workshop in Vegas? Well, I don't want to say anything if I don't know, but my 65th birthday is in 2025, and that is on my bucket list to do like one more, kind of like, you know, when the Eagles did the Hell Freezes Over tour, to maybe do one more back in Vegas. The hotel we had is not available anymore, but you just never know. So put it on your vision board. And Rancho La Puerta is August 17th through 24th. We're half sold already. We're going to be bringing on the executive chef on Monday, February 5th to make a recipe from the ranch and show you the ranch for those that are interested in going. And I don't even know if I should say this because I don't want to get people's hopes up, but there's somebody really famous going that's in our circle, and maybe their wife. And like, if you knew this person was going, you would sign up immediately, but I don't want to say their name because if they don't come, I don't want you to be disappointed. But this is a big deal who might be going. I mean, they do want to go. So it's just, they haven't given their deposit yet. So, okay, Janet is clarifying now that we all are gorgeous. So thank you. Janet was on yesterday. Yeah, Chinese baking, not too sweet. Well, even in, you know, like when you go to, okay, so I go to all these like Vietnamese and Chinese restaurants up here because they do SOS free. There either is no dessert menu, or it's like, even when I was little, like the only thing on dessert menu was like kumquats, you know? So yeah, I think desserts are an American obsession, but not everybody's ready to dessert. And also for the person that said, well, why are you, you know, if you're doing this, why this book? Because if somebody is going to go off the rails, I would much rather have them make one of these desserts that has actual fiber and nutrient value that's vegan than go eat a Cinnabon, you know, which is like 18, you know, 1,100 calories and like 65 grams of fat. So, you know, again, know yourself. Not everybody can do 100% abstinence 100% of the time. If you can, God bless you and good for you. I can do 100% abstinence from sugar and oil, but apparently not from flour. And again, I don't really, do you consider the pacha bread flour, guys? I've been eating a little of that. I don't know. It's buckwheat.
I've never had it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I almost wish I never had it, because that's the thing. This is the problem with being novelty seeking. They came on my show, they sent me some, and now they sell it at Whole Foods. So it's bread with two ingredients, buckwheat and salt. So but anyway, what can I tell you? Can your veggies for breakfast be raw like a salad? Yeah. And if you need the fruit to eat the salad, that would be a case for having fruit in the morning. Because, you know, when you put the fruit in the oatmeal, you basically have oatmeal to me, because most people aren't doing oat groats like Jesse. They're doing either, you know, they're doing the most processed version, which, or the almost most processed version, which is the instant oat, which if you've ever taken an instant oat and gone like this, it turns into flour right in your hand, which to me is flour. And then you put on some sweet fruit with sugar. So oatmeal and fruit for breakfast is basically like the vegan healthy version of eating cake. And we know you're always going to like oatmeal and fruit. So eat it for dessert. Get those savories in at the beginning of the day if you're struggling with sugar addiction. What about bean flour? Yeah, I consider all flour flour. It doesn't matter if it comes from a legume, a grain, you know, a banana, a coconut. Flour is flour, and it's highly processed. It's not in nature. It's a higher glycemic index. It's a much higher caloric density. You know, whole grains are 500 calories per pound. Flours are 1,500. So yeah, we don't recommend it at all. So, or at least for the purposes of this program and for weight loss and for people with food addiction. Dixie says bread equals flour. So I don't know. Is the pacha bread flour? I don't know. But, you know, maybe I'll work on not having it for the 30 days. But again, you know, here's the other thing. I didn't test the waters until 10 years out. I towed the line. And anytime I tested something like bringing tahini back, which caused an incredible quick weight gain of like 5 pounds overnight with everything else being equal, I did it with professional help working with Dr. Lyle and Dr. Goldhammer. Hummus and falafels. What about it? Well, hummus is completely compliant if it's not made with oil, and you don't even have to put tahini in it. And lots of people like Chef Del and Kathy Fisher have compliant falafel recipes, you know, so yeah. Well, what about date syrup and sugar? Yeah, well, when you say too processed for what? It's calorically dense, so I don't recommend it for the 30-day reboot program. But if you need a sweetener, I'd rather have people use whole dates than any kind of sugar or fakes. Savory means not sweet, Jean. So, you know, there's sweet foods like you know, sweet, and then there's savory foods, which are not sweet. So like entrees are more savory and dessert is more sweet. So start your day in a savory way. Yeah, banana, there is banana flour. You can use it to bake. There is almond flour. There is coconut flour. So anytime you grind a whole food into very, very small particles, it's a flour, and it triples the caloric density, increases the glycemic index. You don't receive a recording, guys, if you're watching this on any of the platforms that we stream on, which are Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. When it's over, it's just there on that platform and you can watch it again. I can't eat veggies first thing. I feel sick. So what I do is eat my oats first and then an hour later eat my veggies. Okie doke. And the other thing is you might say, could you eat your veggies with your oats? Like instead of having sweet oats, not saying that you do, because I don't know, there's a thing called savory oats. So that might be a good thing too. Anyway, I'm getting tired, guys. So I don't know about you.
Can I say one thing before we go? I just wanted to mention to people, if anybody's signing up, that when they register, they immediately get access to the Kajabi platform, and they'll find like the shopping list, recipes, that kind of stuff on there. So if they want to start getting their stuff together, they can't access any of the modules yet because that'll start day one. But at least if people want to kind of get a jump start on kind of cleaning out, you know, their pantry and setting up their environment in the most helpful way they can, they'd be able to do that once they register. So I just want people to know that. And there's going to be like lots of recipes in there. Don't make yourself crazy by thinking that you have to make every single recipe. You can make every single recipe if you want. Susanna, did you make every single recipe the first time or no? You didn't.
No,
yeah.
no.
Yeah. It's, you know, pick a handful to try and then try a different handful the following week. And don't make yourself crazy about this, guys. Just, you know.
Yeah, there is a meal plan, and some people love meal plans, but that wasn't the way I did it, Zena, to your point. I just thought, oh, this recipe sounds good. So I did it, you know, and actually the portions were quite big. So I had it for another meal, which I could just heat up and not have to cook.
Right. Yeah, we have the meal plan, and it's you get one for each week and you get all the recipes. There's a question, is chickpea pasta okay? I mean, it's probably better than white flour pasta, but again, pasta even though the caloric density is to the left of the red line because it's cooked with water, it's not really a whole food. I mean, can you make it in your kitchen? Some people can, but to me, that's more flour-like than even the pacha bread because you have to grind something, and it's just, I don't recommend it for weight loss issues or food addiction issues. But again, everybody's a unique individual. You can always test it out, So, okay. Well, guys, let's see. We'll come back. We don't have our date yet for February, but what do you guys want to talk about? What do you guys want to hear us talk
What do
about?
they want to hear about?
Yeah, what do you want to hear about? We can talk about all the success
Oh, I have an idea. Yeah, we could. Yeah, could we maybe have a couple of people from the reboot who might be brand new people, and they might share their, or maybe we'll just talk about them. No,
and we'll talk about them behind their back.
yeah, behind the back.
We'll
We
find
won't tell
out.
anybody.
Or, you can always talk about, like the three of you are always on the boards, that meaning in the private support group, like what you learn from people, like, and what are some common denominators of what you've seen and where people struggle. Because I feel, and again, I obviously I haven't worked with everybody, but I don't know what you see in FFOF, Zena, Jesse, and Susanna. But I feel that the people that struggle the most are the ones in the unclean environment. And that it's not to say that they don't have issues in a clean environment, but it's not to the same degree of, up and down. Because, I always say you're only as clean as your environment is lean. And I was listening to an interview with Adam Sudd today, and like he says this thing, your environment has to look like your goals. And if people could just do that one thing, I think it would be a lot easier for them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the environment thing is always, I think, an issue for people, and it's hard, especially the more gentle, agreeable people. It's harder for them because they're not. It's harder to lay down the law, and I get it because it's like when you share your space with another person, you're trying to, you have to. It's a balance, right, between your wants and needs and their wants and needs. So
here's a funny question. I'm late. Can you please talk about the 30-day program? Well, we've done like all week, so I'm sorry I can't because other than to tell you there's a link to register, or you can just click the link to learn more about it, because we did a 2-hour session earlier today with JP and 4 hours yesterday about it. But it's a wonderful chance to interact with me and the coaches and Dr. Goldhammer, Dr. Lyle, and John Pierre. It's delivered over 30 days starting Tuesday. It's less than the cost of a private session with me if I were to do private sessions. And it's phenomenal. And you get 12 hours of live interaction like this, where you can ask questions to myself and the doctor. So that's the short answer. So, okay, guys. Well, I look forward to seeing you in the program. We have a lot of fun on Zoom, especially when we have funny things happen where people forget to turn their cameras off in precarious situations. We can always laugh about that, not laugh, but comment about that. Oh yes, and the 4 videos. Thank you. If you just click the link, even if you don't register, there's 4 videos, short videos on the website that explain it. So thank you everyone for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow we have a brand new show debuting tomorrow. We're starting a little bit early because I have to catch a plane. Instead of 9, we're starting at 8:30 a.m. And it's Dr. Michael Clapper and Dr. Zach Burns. It's about moving medicine forward, and it's going to be phenomenal. Take care, everybody. You don't have a lot of time to register because we're filling up. Today is National Quitting Day, where most people quit their resolutions. Know that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You've got nothing to lose. We do offer a free 15-day. We used to do a 30-day money back guarantee, and too many people were refunding on day 30 after they've taken all the resources. So you got a 15-day money back guarantee if the program isn't right for you. So do your best, bless the rest, have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys at 8:30 tomorrow for Dr. Michael Clapper and Dr. Zach Burns. And remember, as we always say, if it's in your house,
It's in your
house.
take